Why is meaning, purpose, and mission so important? Because people are motivated when given a sense of purpose rather than just pursuing what appears to be nothing more than profit. They tend to have more of a sense of ownership, especially when their work means something to them personally. Hey, welcome back to the Culture-neer podcast. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney. I want to talk to you today about how important work is in the lives of the people that we lead. I think connecting the dots between work and their feeling of purpose is crucial to the long-term success of your organization, whether the organization happens to be for-profit or whether it happens to be nonprofit. So just being very intentional about connecting purpose to those positions is what we're going to talk about today. It's always my goal to help you grow in your leadership as well as create a healthier culture for those you lead. So welcome to the show, and let's get going. I'm honored and privileged just to spend a few minutes with you today because I get excited about discussing the subject of culture with you because I truly believe it is the secret sauce for successful organizations. The interesting thing about culture is it's either the result of what we create or what we allow. And if you boil it all down and begin to realize that concept, I think it brings a great sense of responsibility. I can't blame it on this person or say it's because of that or my experience or where I'm at geographically, or it's because I'm a for-profit or a nonprofit business. No, culture is a result of either what we've allowed just to happen, or it's what we've intentionally tried to create. And so the subject matter of today, of understanding how important work is to the lives of those we're leading and connecting that with purpose is what you can begin to create today if you haven't done that already, or it's what you can nurture and cultivate so it becomes a deeper part of the DNA of your organization. So I love the fact that in our audience that we have a lot of different backgrounds represented. And I think sometimes we think maybe because we're a nonprofit organization and we're leading there that, I'm not really sure how much these business principles have to do with me. Or put the other hat on, if I'm in the business world, I'm not really sure what I could learn from someone in a nonprofit industry. Here's the great thing about what we're talking about. So when it comes to culture and the concepts that we talk about on the show, what we're really talking about are principles. And the common denominator between a for-profit organization and a nonprofit organization is people. So at the end of the day, all of us listening today, we're in the people business. I could run a restaurant, a construction company, a church, an orphanage, a nonprofit organization that focuses on missions overseas, or I could have a manufacturing facility or a technology company. It doesn't matter. They're all filled with people. All the functions that we talk about are carried out by people. And all the problems and all the successes that we celebrate all revolve around people. So we're all in the people business. And I think it's interesting, too. I want to just stay on this theme for just a second. I want you to think today, what could a for-profit business learn from a nonprofit business? What perspective could we gain if we walked in their shoes for just a little bit? And we've had some, people on this show from the nonprofit world. I don't know about you, but if I could get people to show up in my business every day and not want to be paid, it would make life a lot easier. Or let me say this, if they wanted to show up every day and they were so committed that if I simply give them a donut and encourage them, they'd come back the next week and work again. And I'm talking valuable time, like come work on the weekends and take time away from my family to devote to that. Because that's what nonprofits do every single week. They have honed in a leadership skill of being able to cast a vision and connect it with a mission that is being carried out by the people that are in their organizations to the point that they just want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And pay is not the reason they show up to begin with, and it's for sure not the reason they keep coming back. Now think about that for a minute. They're excellent at vision casting. They're excellent at celebrating the people, which in most cases, the majority of them are volunteers. And then you flip that over. Well, I live in this nonprofit world. What could I pull from, the for-profit world? Think about how businesses think long-term. I think a lot of nonprofits could glean from the examples of having tough conversations when you need to. Because we've talked about many times, a lot of times the reason that we don't have the kind of conversations that would really help the people that we're talking to, it's not because of their feelings that we're worried about hurting. It's because of the awkwardness that it makes us feel when we're having to have that conversation. And so there's a lot that we could learn from that. I think there's a lot nonprofits could learn from for-profit businesses when it comes to excellence. Like, there's a certain bar, that we want to be able to reach to. And yesterday was good, but tomorrow needs to be better. Understand that, we're in a competitive environment, one that is constant development. I think there's leadership principles that can be learned. So you pull both of those worlds together and you have this people concept. There's something that could be learned from both. So hopefully today, the principles that we're talking about, irregardless of where you sit today, whatever organization you're leading, I believe there's going to be something that you're going to be able to pull from this. I love that quote by Peter Drucker when he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." You think about that comment for a minute. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. You see, you can have the best breakthrough strategy in your business or your nonprofit, but if the culture is dysfunctional, eventually the customer is going to feel that. If you treat your team poorly, eventually your team is going to treat your customers poorly. The experience of the customer will never exceed the experience of the employee. And I want you to think about that just for a minute. The people that you're leading, you are setting the bar on the experience of the people that you hope to turn into a customer or turn into a parishioner or turn into a volunteer. All those people that you're trying to reach with your message, your product, your service, whatever that may be, is being limited severely or being enhanced by how you're treating and interacting with the people that are closest to you on your team as an employee or as an integral part of your volunteer staff. So that concept alone should motivate us to begin to look a little bit more inward and see, how can I improve the experience of the people that are going on this journey with me, that are on my team. So when I wrote the book Culture-neer, I think about that, and there was like three major things that stuck out to me on the why behind that. One is because work really matters. And that's what we're going to do the deep dive into today. But the second part of that is that people matter. And then the third part of that is the communities we serve matter. And here was the game changer for me. When I realized on a deeper level that my work, the work of the team and the employees around us mattered to God as a person of faith. And I realize you may be listening today and you may not be a person of faith, but for me, this was that wake up aha moment. It's like, this matters to God, and these people matter to God. And the communities that we're serving in our business matter to God. My perspective completely changed. I began to realize that part of my purpose was helping those that are around me discover what their purpose is, and then trying to train them and empower them in such a way they could live out that purpose. See, many times they can live out that purpose within under the umbrella of the organization that we're leading. In other words, they can take their gifts and be paid to do that and flourish right where they're at today, and go home every night and feel like I have made a significant difference in the world I live in. I, today, moved one step closer to helping fulfill the purpose for which I was born. And guys, we're all born with a purpose, and we're all born on purpose. There is no mistakes. There is no accidents. Different vehicles, different timing on how we get there. But the only reason we're here is because there is a purpose for us to fulfill. So perspective is really the only thing in the world that can radically transform the results you get without altering one single element of the environment. It's a mind shift. I begin to think about things differently. And that's really what began to happen to me. I began to think differently about my business and my role. And it brought a deeper sense of purpose, a deeper sense of fulfillment, and a deeper sense of significance on what I was doing. Because I'm going to be honest, just trading time for dollars was an unsatisfying life for me. But to be able to trade my time, and yes, I need dollars to be able to take care of my family. But if I'm able to give more, you're able to receive more back from that. And my giving more was like, how can I give more into the lives of the people that are surrounding me? So here's a question for you. What if all of us today chose to change our perspective about our businesses? What if we realized our business has a purpose that goes beyond just money? Or it has a purpose that is even bigger than profit? Or maybe it was more about mission than it is just stats and margin. If that perspective would begin to shift, how different would our organizations be? How different would the lives of the people that come to work every day, because work really does matter, how different would that be? So here's a statistical fact. Businesses who seek value beyond money find more value in the work that their company accomplishes. I'm going to repeat that because it's worth you writing down. Businesses who seek value that goes beyond money find more value in the work that their company accomplishes. And so do people that you're leading. When a person is in a job where they feel like they're creating value for others, they aren't just in it to make it to retirement anymore. They're there to make a difference. You talk about engagement in a society and in a workforce today in our country that is disengaged, leaving in mass numbers. Most of the time, they're not quitting the company they work for. They're quitting the manager that they're reporting to. So think about that. Here's another fact. People are willing to spend more with a company they believe in and one that they identify with their purpose. Am I catching your attention yet? Surveys tell us that this is especially important to the millennials and Gen Zs. Matter of fact, they are leaving companies that are only competing for profit. Why? Because they've realized at a younger age, maybe than even my generation, that they really want to invest their life in something that matters, and it's bigger than a paycheck. So they have a bigger worldview. In some ways, it is not so self-centered and selfish. I love what Albert Einstein once said. He said, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. I think if you marinate on that just a little bit and stew on it, there's some deep truths in that statement. You see, work matters, and one of the reasons it matters is it provides purpose in the lives of those that are working in your organization. Maximum engagement comes when you can take the purpose for which this person has and their giftings and begin to align that with something of value within your organization where they can flourish and their strengths can shine through, and it becomes a win-win partnership for both. We have an opportunity as leaders to help people discover purpose at work and find a path to greatness. I think it goes beyond an opportunity. I think we have the responsibility of helping people discover their purpose at work. Because if they do, they will find a path to greatness. Let's talk about just quickly how important work is in the lives of the people that we lead. Because that's what makes the culture equally important. See, I believe everyone wants to make a difference while making a living. And we have the opportunity to give them a chance to make a living and at the same time teach them, coach them, mentor them for what lies ahead. We have an opportunity to show those that we're leading that there's a purpose beyond just the purchase. This is a great book that I'm going to recommend. It's been around for over 2 decades. If you haven't read it, it's a classic. It needs to be a part of your library. Built to Last, Jim Collins. This book is written about studies of the successful habits of visionary companies. And during this study, Collins identified a distinguished list of these visionary companies, and they were guided by a purpose beyond making money. And he demonstrated that these visionary companies, get this, they returned 6 times more to their shareholders than companies that were just profit-driven or their profit-driven competitors. 6 times more. So he does this study, and the ones that were more purpose-driven, doesn't mean that they weren't profitable. It didn't mean that profit wasn't important. It just means that they also had purpose that was beyond the profit. 6 times more profitable than the companies that were led by CEOs that woke up every day and said profit is the bottom line. We're waking up today thinking about how we can squeeze more profit. We're going to bed tonight trying to figure out how we can maximize more profit and squeeze more out of our employees and, maybe cut corners here, whatever the case might be. 6 times more. So there was a wake-up call. And when these came out, companies began to take notice. Matter of fact, if you want to begin to catch the eye or the ear of the CEO and try to begin to change things in a company, talk to them about something that will change their bottom line, and it catches their attention. Here's what happened, though. These companies, many of them begin to embark on a journey to begin to define their purpose, and then figure out a way they could communicate it across their organization. Here's what happened, though. Unfortunately, the studies suggested that while many understood that there's a big difference but there's a big difference between what we know and what we do consistently, isn't there? So they got it. They realized it's black and white, 6 times more profit. They understood, this. We need to probably make this happen. This is important. But they didn't have the commitment to make it happen. Less than 50% of these organizations really were ran in any kind of a purpose-driven way. And one of the main obstacles, it says in the study, for these organizations to act in a purpose-driven way is the daily, monthly, and quarterly distraction of being able of delivering hard, tangible KPIs and maintaining a healthy balance sheet. In other words, at the end of the day, culture is hard work. You don't just drift to greatness. It's intentional acts. It's decision after decision. That's why I say that the culture is so much the secret sauce of the organization, because we can identify, well, if I do that, I'm going to get this kind of result. Most people want the results. They're just not willing to put the work in to get the results. And it's the same way when it comes to our organizations. Another challenge was that many leaders, they find it difficult putting a handle on what purpose really is. It's kind of abstract. It's intangible. It's difficult to measure. Sometimes it's even hard to justify if you had shareholders. Why you're spending money on this. We have an expense, in ours that's in our accounting department, and it's called team building. There's all kinds of stuff that go in here. Like, how does diapers go into team building? I'm sure if somebody outside is looking into our books and you spent how much taking how many people on a trip for 2 or 3 days? Did you realize how much your food budget was? Really, how does a grill or a bass boat figure into team building? Actually, we call it team care, not team building. And that's a pretty big line item for us as a company. So it costs a lot of money, and you have to be very intentional about it. And most people aren't willing to do that, even though they know that purpose is ultimately the path to more profitability. They get lost in the day-to-day decisions, and it just becomes a lot of work. I do think that great CEOs understand that they can leverage purpose, that it does create a competitive advantage that is difficult or really even impossible to replicate. When organizations gain clarity of their purpose, They not only connect with their customers better, but what happens is we energize our employees as well. Our team gets excited because now it's not a spreadsheet. It's not numbers. It's not just editing another video. It's not just, doing the same task that I did 10 times last week. No, because I'm not in this business. I'm in a people business. And what I did today added value to the life of other people. And so there's a sense of fulfillment that comes out of that makes me want to bring my A game, that makes me want to stay engaged, that I'm not looking like so many of my peers kind of watching the clock to know what time, this is over. It's the countdown for my torment to be over. But it's really like, wow, where'd the day go? I still have so much to do. Not in an overwhelming way that creates a lot of excess stress and anxiety, but that I really feel like, man, the day flew by because I was busy doing something that kind of brought me to life. And I was a part of something today that was really much, much bigger than myself. So clarity of purpose shows what the company cares for. It also determines how it approaches business, not just simply what it does. Shared purpose helps foster a stronger sense of organizational identity, building commitment among and between employees. It inspires employees. It creates feeling of pride when they know their organization cares for something that's just bigger than themselves. It's contributing meaningful ways, I should say, to a much larger society. It helps overcome and recover from setbacks. It also helps retain employees. Why? Because they're bought into the organization's purpose. I think the story of a 21st century business is not one that aims to justify its existence through just spreadsheets and a healthy balance sheet, but rather one that lives out its purpose in every business function, creates meaningful products, and it also creates meaningful services that deliver impact to society. It's a little bit different way to look at your work. What does it take to be a purpose-driven organization? Because that's how we're really going to make work matter in the lives of the people that we're leading. It takes leadership. Not just leaders, it takes leadership. Leadership in exercising foresight, gaining the clarity, understanding those things that are super important and having the courage to begin to walk them out and defend those things. Leadership in communicating, inspiring, aligning a sense of shared purpose across all levels of the organization. It's about making tough decisions to stay true to your purpose, in spite of the risks, in spite of the costs, sometimes in spite of the financial losses and the pressures that come from, outside sources. Because a lot of times people don't see the big picture. They only see the chapter that is the most important to them. When as leaders, we're having to look at the whole book, and we hopefully have the ability to see a little bit of the end from the beginning. In other words, I know that's where we're going, and what I do now is a step in the direction that's taking me down the path of this journey that will ultimately lead to where we ultimately want to be. That's the value of a healthy vision statement and really understanding it. My mission is what I'm doing today and how I'm doing it, but the vision, that's where I want to end up. And I need to be able to communicate that effectively to the people I'm leading. If you want to reach the land of profit, you got to follow the road of purpose. There's your takeaway. Because there has to be purpose behind the profit. And if we can help the people that we're leading find that what they do matters, guys, it's a game changer. I truly believe you can inspire your team to be more mission-minded. But again, it takes work. Giving your team a mission that's worth following, it should be one of all of our top priorities. You may know why you're doing what you're doing. You may know why you're making the sacrifices that you're making. But does the people that you need on your team know what that is? Or are you taking an old school approach, do it because I said so? That doesn't garner a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration. We need to be able to lead better. Why is meaning, purpose, and important and mission so important? Because people are motivated when given a sense of purpose rather than just pursuing what appears to be nothing more than profit. They tend to have more of a sense of ownership, especially when their work means something to them personally. They're just naturally even more committed. It's just human nature. So what we're talking about is not only good for your team, but it's important to build into building a culture that's healthy and one that's super competitive. I love this quote. It says, "For in the end, it is impossible to have a great life unless it's a meaningful life. And it's very difficult to have a meaningful life without having meaningful work." Now you think about how much time the people that you lead spend within your organization. And you take that big chunk of their life, and if that's one to where you're helping equip them, providing them opportunities, growing them as a person, growing them professionally, and they're beginning to live out and flourish and carrying out their purpose, obviously you get the benefit of that. But so do they. And in that kind of environment, that work becomes meaningful. Flip that around, and if people show up and they simply feel like a number and they're just pushing a button every day, if I wasn't here, somebody else could push the same button. And what I do, provides me a paycheck, but not much more than that. That's a mere poor existence, one that is not very exciting, one that doesn't have a real sense of purpose, one that's it's going to be really hard for me to be engaged in, really hard for me to pour my all into and give my best. So we need to create meaningful work so the people that are working for us feel like they have a meaningful life. It's the key to having a highly engaged team. You're going to have to remind your people that their work matters and that they're making a difference. Listen to this. Leaders are repeaters. Vision leaks. In other words, sometimes we get tired of saying the same thing over and over again. Like, how many times should I say that? The moment you think you've said it too much, say it 10 more times. Because life happens. Things are busy. Just because it's the top of your list of importance doesn't mean it's at the top of the list of all those that you're leading in the area of their life and importance. And you have to find different ways to say it. You have to say it over and over again, and you have to be creative about it. Vision rarely repeated is quickly forgotten. So if where you're going is important enough that you need a team to help get you there, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Become creative in how you communicate it. Drive it home. Understand that it leaks. You need to talk about it again. Guys, we get absorbed in our life, in our schedules. We get absorbed. We forget about the person that we married and why we married them, and we become so consumed with carrying out the task of our home that sometimes, it's like, I don't even know the person that I'm living with. We do the same thing at work. We can get so tied up in the things that we're doing and forget why we're doing them and why they really matter. And it's your job as a leader to begin to bring that full circle again and begin to remind people. This is more about than your skill set of what you did today. I want you to understand what you made happen, how you impacted lives, where we're going, how what you did today moved us one step closer to that. Super important. You're going to hear a show that's going to air here on an interview I did with a gentleman named Chris Darley. And Chris was at an event that I was at. It's kind of a master class for culture. And it was hosted at the Chick-fil-A headquarters. And he spoke for about 15 minutes. And I was in the audience. And when he spoke, I just really connected. Here's what he said. In those 10 or 15 minutes that he talked about when he onboards employees to his team, that during the orientation process, they will spend upwards of 2 hours connecting purpose to the person and the position that they were hired for. So it's tailored to whatever position that person was hired for. In other words, he owns 2 Chick-fil-A's. And the person in the back that is battering chicken, understand there's a bigger purpose than you showing up today and battering as much chicken as you can batter. And for 2 hours tying in, here's the purpose. Here's why you're so important to the goal of this organization. Here's why what you do matters. Here's why you're significant to the smiles that you're seeing out in the dining room today. Here's why you're so important to seeing what we've been able to give back to the community. Because you did so well, we're able to do this. 2 hours for each position. And they also help their people that work for them come up with their own mission and purpose statement for their life. In other words, they're adding value and they're extracting value back out of them. And people are walking in a sense of purpose and significance and thus fulfillment. Why? Because work really matters. So I want to encourage you today. I want you to look at work through a different set of lenses. I want you to be more intentional about how you can connect purpose to the positions that you have in your organization. Elevate your game. I challenge you to elevate your game to repeat, and then repeat. Understand it's so important. It needs to be said again. It needs to be said again. People need to be reminded of where we're going and what they do and why it matters. True Caddy, I think, said one time, he was asked, who needs encouraged? And he said, well, anybody that's breathing. Because everybody needs encouragement every single day. And your team needs that. They need to be reminded that the work they do on some days is more difficult than others. Really does matter. And that they're really making a difference. I appreciate you spending some time with us today. I hope you've pulled some gold out of what we've talked about today that you can apply in your business as you're leading people. Again, remember, it doesn't matter what field, what industry, what organization you're in the people business. And these principles matter, and those people matter. And your culture, it's only going to be as healthy as the leader. So go out this week, make a mark that can't be erased. We'll see you next time on the Culture-neer podcast. Terry Gwaltney from the Culture-neer podcast. Listen, I want to say thank you for listening to the podcast today. I also want to encourage you to help us get the message out to more people. If you could like, share, and review this content on wherever you consume it, if you go into YouTube or LinkedIn or just whatever your social media channels are, and you could even share it, that would be a big help to us here at the Culture-neer podcast. Also, if you'd like some more information, you can go to www.terrygwaltney.com, where we have updates. We also have more resources. We share articles there. And you also can find our new book there called The Culture-neer. Again, we want to thank you again for taking time just to listen to the podcast or view it on YouTube. It's our goal to spend 20 or 30 minutes each time we're together to help grow your culture to a point where your employees refuse to leave and your customers can't resist. This is Terry. We'll talk to you soon.